That's his son he brought. Yeah. There, but I don't know where the kid is now.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you all and thank you for joining us for our 2017 Veterans Day celebration. I'm retired Navy Surface Warfare Commander Lou Witherspoon and the Vice President of the Mount Soledad National Veterans Memorial Association. Great thanks to the Marine Band San Diego, led by Enlisted Director Sergeant Willa Mahi Fihai, who has provided the patriotic music that we've been listening to thus far. Please stand as we invite Marine Corps Recruit Depot Color Guard to present the colors. Today's Color Guard is led by Sergeant Vincent Sanchez. Color Guard, present the colors.
Forward! March!
As many of you know, we always have two honored veterans of the year participate in these ceremonies. The Mount Soledad National Memorial's Veteran of the Year and the San Diego County Veteran of the Year. The Mount Soledad Veteran of the Year is Marine Corps Sergeant Major Retired Neil O'Connell. Neil is currently in Ireland and unable to join us today, is hosting the family of Lance Corporal John O'Shea as he at the U.S. Embassy in Dublin. John was a young Irish immigrant who was a machine gunner in Bravo Company 1-4, and Neil was his company first sergeant when John passed away on the Marine Corps birthday, 10 November 1997, 20 years ago. The 2016-2017 Mount Soledad Veteran of the Year and a great supporter of the memorial is here with us today. Dick Woltman, a Korean War veteran, and it's always great to have you with us, Dick. We are pleased to welcome the 2017-2018 San Diego County Veteran of the Year, Bob Muth, whose selection was announced at the Veteran of the Year luncheon this past Thursday. Bob is a professor in residence at the University of San Diego School of Law, where he teaches in the areas of legal ethics and veteran law. He's a Marine Corps veteran and has served on the board of directors of numerous veterans charities and recently completed a 3-year term as chairman of the San Diego Veterans Coalition, a prominent local nonprofit organization. Dick and Bob, we are honored that you are with us today and invite you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
On behalf of all the veterans of the Mount Soledad Association and veterans everywhere, it's my honor to be here and to join with Bob in reciting the pledge and ask you to do it with us. Place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Bob and Dick. And now please remain standing as Marine Veteran soloist, Marine Veteran Sergeant Rocio Sanchez will sing our national anthem a cappella.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed broad stripes and bright stars, through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Sergeant Sanchez. Please remain standing as the color guard retire the colors. Color guard, retire the colors. The invocation today will be presented by the Reverend Bear Ride from Clairemont, California in the Los Angeles area. Pastor Ride is a minister in the Presbyterian Church, and in keeping with our theme of honoring women who have pioneered in the field of aviation, Reverend Ride is also the sister of late Sally Ride, the first American woman in space and youngest NASA astronaut when she went into space in 1983. Reverend Ride.
Thank you. It is such a great honor to be here with you today. Let's stand in silence for a moment. Can you hear it? It is the silence that holds all of our stories, the hurt for which there are no words. It is the silence that shares the ache of the past and knows the deep cost of conflict and war. It is the silence that also holds the vision for peace. We gather here in remembrance, and we gather here in hope. Let us pray. God of peace, just as the guns fell silent on this day so many, many years ago, allowing people to hear the sounds of hope and promise again, may our hearts be quieted in this hour. And in that silence, may we hear you calling us anew to create a world of peace and of justice. For all who have served the cause of peace in our armed forces, for all who have lost loved ones in times of war, for all who continue to suffer due to war, we pray. For all whose conscience has been wounded by violence, for all whose sense of purpose has suffered, for all whose bodies bear the marks of war, we pray. For all who bring comfort to veterans and their families, for all who long for peace, for all who dedicate their lives to peace, we pray. Eternal One, you have made of one blood all the nations that dwell upon the earth. Grant that we, united in goodwill, may live together in peace and in joy, and abound in the hope of creation's renewal. We join with you now in this hallowed place, loving God, and now we open our eyes to see all that is embraced in your extravagant love. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Wright. Please be seated. It is my pleasure now to welcome today's Master of Ceremonies, Marc Bailey, who also served as our Master of Ceremonies for our 2015 and 2016 Memorial Day commemoration and last year's Veteran Day commemoration. Marc is a San Diego County native, growing up in Alpine and graduating from Grossmont High School, class of 1973. That's right. Okay. He worked as a San Diego Police Department officer from 1979 to 1983 and has served as a reserve officer with the El Cajon Police Department since October 2009. Marc has 30 years of experience in broadcasting and is a National University alumnus. He graduated in 1982 with a bachelor's degree in business administration. He was also formerly the morning news anchor on San Diego CW6 TV for 14 years, and last year joined the National University System as their Director of Innovative Digital Media Productions. Please join me in welcoming back Marc Bailey. Marc?
I know, I look at it, I can't believe it either. 73, that can't be right. It's true, it's true. My pleasure to be back here again. You know, and I've told this story many, many times, and I'm gonna keep telling it because when you're off TV for a little while, you kind of have a shelf life, and I've been off for about a year now. It takes about that long for people to realize you're not on the air. That's, you know, that's how much you're really paying attention. But after that period of time, you know, the invitations to MC events and so forth come in a little less often and so forth. So I'm just going to tell you what a good friend of mine told me, that this is what I always reflect on when somebody asks me to come out and do an event like this. Y'all know Randy Jones, Cy Young Award pitcher for the Padres. Yeah, he was on my show one day, and I asked him to sign a baseball for me, and I said, Randy, I hope you don't mind. And he said, mind? He said, I'm scared to death for the day when people are going to stop asking. So if I can learn something from a Cy Young Award winner, I could never throw a baseball worth a darn, but I can learn that, and that's how I feel when somebody asks me to come to an event like this. I'm honored, I'm thrilled, and I'm just humbled to be a part of it. I don't know why these folks let me hang out with all of you, but they do, so thank you. And please keep asking. It's my pleasure to introduce another really good guy, Lou Scanlon, president of the Mount Soledad Veterans Memorial and retired Navy commander. Lou has served on the Mount Soledad board since 2014. Lou is a Cold War and Vietnam era veteran. After college, he joined the Navy and flew F-4 fighters from the aircraft carrier Saratoga. He was discharged from active duty in 1972 and retired from the Navy Reserve in 1996 at the rank of commander. He joined the San Diego Police Department in 1974 and served 33 years with that department, rising through the ranks to assistant chief. He retired in 2007 and 2 weeks later promptly went to work as the head of the Coronado Police Department as their chief. He served as their chief until retiring there in 2013, culminating over 38 years in law enforcement. After retiring from Coronado, Lou joined the board of the Mount Soledad National Veterans Memorial and ultimately was elected as the president and CEO. Lou helped spearhead significant contributions toward the future of the memorial, including the successful completion of the first phase of a major fundraising effort that will allow for enhancement of this memorial, expansion of educational outreach programs, and development of activities that bring national attention to this incredible memorial. So please join me in welcoming Mount Soledad National Veterans Memorial Association's president, Lou Scanlon.
Well, thank you very much, Marc. Whenever I hear those kind of interactions, I always remember the quote from LBJ, who after an introduction like that one time said, "Thank you very much for those very kind remarks." He said, "My father would be very, very proud, and my mother would have believed them. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you on behalf of the trustees, staff, and volunteers of the Mount Soledad Memorial Association. And I'd also like to acknowledge and welcome the dignitaries with us today on the dais and in our audience. As I introduce them, please hold your applause. Please hold your applause until they've all been introduced. Would our special guests please stand and raise their hand, or raise their hand as I call their name so that they may be recognized. On the dais in our first row, our MC, Marc Bailey. You are paying attention this year. That is terrific. You'll notice a helmet on the seat next to Marc. That helmet actually was worn and owned by our honoree, Jackie Cochran. It is on loan to us through the generosity of the San Diego Air and Space Museum and their executive director, Jim Kendrick. Next to the helmet is Commander Lou Witherspoon, who you met earlier. And then our guest speaker, Dr. Bonnie Dunbar, who will give our keynote address. Reverend Bear Ride, who gave us our invocation. Mr. Robert Muth. Robert is a Marine Corps veteran and is San Diego County Veteran of the Year. And let's see, Sergeant Rocio Sanchez, who was our guest soloist. Okay, and on the next row, we have Mr. William Kellogg, the Chairman Emeritus of the Mount Soledad Memorial Association, longtime supporter and benefactor of this association and memorial. Our Congressman Scott Peters, our Congresswoman Susan Davis, former City Council member and State Assembly member Todd Gloria, San Diego County District Attorney Summer Stephan, and of course our Mayor Kevin Faulkner. Not yet. Not yet. I said something about on the dais and in our audience, okay? And in our audience with us, we have San Diego Chief of Police Shelley Zimmerman. And let me mention the fact that this will be the last time Shelley will be with us as the Chief of Police, and she has attended every one of our events. So we really certainly appreciate that. After March, she probably won't have much to do, and we are always looking for good trustees. Okay? Seated next to her is Todd Jarvis, Assistant Police Chief. The Vice Chairman of the United Veterans Council, Steve Schweitzer. And two great friends of this association and wonderful people are Pearl Harbor survivor Stu Headley. You can certainly clap for Stu. And of course, Will Hayes from the Veterans Museum at Balboa Park. You know, as I have put more and more birthdays astern, that's kind of a nautical term, I've come to realize that time really is our most precious asset. These individuals, as well as you, chose to spend your time here with us to honor our veterans. Please join with me in thanking them with a real warm round of applause. We are here today to honor our nation's veterans. I'd like to do that by having our veterans stand, if able, or raise their hands as their branch of service is announced. The United States Army, founded June 14th, 1775. The United States Navy, founded October 13th, 1775. Get ready for the hurrahs. The United States Marine Corps, founded November 19th, 1775. The United States Coast Guard, founded August 4th, 1790. And the United States Air Force, founded September 18th, 1947. I'd like also, if we have any Gold Star family members, to please stand. and we certainly want to show our appreciation to them and all of our veterans. You know, today we honor a very special veteran, Jackie Cochran. You'll hear her incredible story a little later in the program. Although she is the first woman honored by the association on Veterans Day, the association has a long history of honoring women veterans. As you walk these walls, you'll find many plaques honoring women that have served since the incorporation of women into the military during the Second World War through the current war on terrorism. Army Specialist Lori Pestawa, a Hopi Indian, gave her life in Iraq. She is the first Native American woman killed in combat, and she is honored here with a plaque. Mount Soledad also has a historic link with women in aviation. In 1930, Anne Morrow Lindbergh became the first woman in America to obtain a first-class glider license by soloing a glider launched from here and landing down in what is now Ardith Road. You may have been assisted to your seats by a volunteer, Barbara Garwood. She's an Air Force veteran that piloted KC-135s in Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm, and recently retired as a captain with American Airlines. In honoring our veterans living and deceased of all of our nation's conflicts, the association continues its mission to ensure that the sacrifice of our veterans are never forgotten. We do this through events on Veterans and Memorial Days, our educational outreach programs, which are primarily focused on our youth. They are our future. We do over 40 Veterans Honor Ceremonies a year, honoring individual veterans as their plaques are installed on these walls. We conduct these programs and maintain and enhance this national Veterans Memorial without any government funding. We depend solely on plaque purchases, memberships, and your donations. So if you're not a member, have not purchased a plaque, or have not made a donation, see someone in the back of the audience at the tables and they can assist you with information on how to accomplish that. Thank you for your attention and investing your precious time to be here with our veterans. Marc?
How many of you are here for the very first time at an event on Mount Soledad? Give them a round of applause. Look at this. That's wonderful. Now, would you do me a huge favor? And next time, invite some friends and bring the kids and bring the grandkids, because we need to pass this message on to future generations. We need to involve them in this, and the way that happens is you lead and they follow. So seeing these young kids in the front row and watching them run around a little bit, watching mom panic a little bit, it's awesome. We're all family, we're all friends, and that just does my heart more good than you know to see all these young people here today. So keep on bringing them, folks. It's now my pleasure to invite San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer to help recognize the largest veteran community in one county in the nation, here in America's finest city and county. Mayor?
Well, thank you, Marc. It's always great to see you. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for being out here today. And it is an honor, as your mayor, to help pay tribute to the brave men and women who have served our city and our nation so proudly. San Diego has a very rich military history. It is embedded in our roots. It defines who we are as San Diegans. And over the years, thousands and thousands of active duty personnel, reserves, and veterans have been stationed from throughout the San Diego area. Whether they're here for a few months, a few years, or some, of course, choose to stay after their service for the rest of their lives. They are part of the fabric of our great city. They are San Diegans. We have more than 240,000 veterans living in San Diego County, one of the largest veterans communities, the single county, of course, in the United States. And we're darn proud of that in San Diego, ladies and gentlemen. Today, of course, is about honoring those heroes for their service, for their patriotism, and for their courage. Many have served overseas, fought on the front lines, faced insurmountable challenges, and for some who have made the ultimate sacrifice. While we can never fully repay them for their service, we can, of course, honor them. And there are ceremonies like this being held all over the nation today. As I think all of us know, and I was glad to see so many hands of folks who are here for the first time. This is a very special place, right here at Mount Soledad and the Association Memorial. The fact that we have, I think often in this digital age of digital media, the power of these photographs on these walls as we honor our veterans. That is something special here in San Diego. For our service members, it's a moment in time that captures their commitment to being a proud service member in the United States military. And of course, it also means so much to our families, their members, their friends, but for those who fought alongside them, to see their faces and share those memories and those experiences that have been shared. So today we gather to remember our brothers, our sisters, our sons and daughters, our husbands, our wives, our fellow veterans who are here who said so much sacrifice for our great nation. So you are the faces of freedom, all of our veterans here today. We say thank you. You are hometown heroes of San Diego, and the reason why we live in the best country in the world. Thank you, and God bless America.
All right, thank you, Mayor Faulkner. And for being such a strong supporter, too, of the largest veteran community here and of our veterans here in San Diego and of this national memorial. We do certainly appreciate it, and it has not gone unnoticed. Today we honor one of the most famous aviators of the United States Air Force. Jacqueline Cochran, a California legend from a bit further northeast in Indio. Now, to discuss her legacy, we are thrilled to have another American hero, Dr. Bonnie J. Dunbar, as our keynote speaker today. Dr. Dunbar is a native of Sunnyside, Washington. She received her Bachelor of Science and Master of Science degrees in ceramic engineering from the University of Washington in 1971 and 75, a doctorate in mechanical biomedical engineering from the University of Houston in 1983. Dr. Dunbar accepted a position as a payload officer flight controller at the Lyndon B. Johnson Space Center in 1978 and served as a guidance and navigation officer, flight controller for the Skylab re-entry mission in 1979. She was subsequently designated Project Officer Payload Officer for the integration of several space shuttle payloads and became a NASA astronaut in 1981. A veteran of 5 space flights, Dr. Dunbar has logged more than 1,208 hours, that's 50 days in space. She served as a mission specialist on Space Shuttle Transportation System, that's STS, 61A in 1985, and STS-32 in 1990, STS-71 in 95, and was the payload commander on STS-50 in 1992 and STS-89 in 1998. She's a member of numerous organizations, including a member of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, International Academy of Astronautics, Society of Women Engineers, and the Association of Space Explorers. Dr. Dunbar was formerly the president and CEO of the Museum of Flight in Seattle, Washington. She's also been the recipient of many special honors, including inducted into the Women in Technology International Hall of Fame in 2000, multiple NASA spaceflight medals, and the NASA Outstanding Leadership Award, the NASA Exceptional Service Award in 1991, and so many more. Ladies and gentlemen, it is truly an honor to have such an American hero and patriot with us here today. Please welcome to the dais, well, to the podium now, Dr. Bonnie J. Dunbar.
Well, thank you very much. It's really an honor and a privilege to be with you today. I'm particularly fond, if you will, of participating in events that celebrate our nation, 4th of July, and celebrate our veterans and those who have given the ultimate sacrifice for protecting our freedoms. That affinity goes back to my family, and so I'm going to give you a few remarks, personal remarks on why I have this view, and also talk to you about Jackie Cochran, actually Lieutenant Colonel, Air Force Reserve Jackie Cochran, and the wonderful legacy that she's left all of us. So I have a connection to San Diego. I didn't live here, but my family has a connection, even though my parents homesteaded in Washington State and I grew up in the Yakima Valley. My father, Robert Charles Dunbar, born in 1921, trained as a Marine at Camp Pendleton during World War II. On September 17, 1942, he turned 21 in San Diego, and as his diary records, he had a great time. A few days later, he shipped out on a secret mission. He was in the 4th Marines. He served in Tarawa, the Marshall Islands, the Marianas, and the Gilberts. Came back to establish a cattle ranch with my mother and raise 4 kids. My younger brother, Robert Sidney Dunbar, trained as a Marine in Camp Pendleton in 1969. He turned 19 here, and I think he also had a great time. Sadly, he did not return from Vietnam. And despite that, my family remembers the fact that he enlisted. He knew full well what he would face. He had talked to my father, but he had a compelling sense of service, a protection of the freedoms, not just what we have here at home, but what he'd been reading about that were facing the South Vietnamese and the farm families in that country. And so it was with a sense of service and dedication that he came down here and trained in Camp Pendleton, proudly wore the Marine uniform, and then shipped off to Da Nang, Vietnam. Many years later, my brother-in-law, Navy Captain, Steve Squires, was stationed on North Island for many years. My sister actually loved it, even though he was out at sea 9 months at a time. She was a teacher here in San Diego and grew very fond of it. I was with NASA at the time, and we took many of our training flights out this way, so the pilots would drop me off at North Island and I would spend time with her. And then after my 4th flight, in which I trained in Russia for 11 months, or actually 13 months, I came back and was invited by the Carl Vinson, where my brother-in-law was the executive officer, for a DV visit. And I remember fondly being out at North Island and flying out on the Cod and landing on the Carl Vinson and standing on the LSO platform for the night traps. How exciting. And then looking at this ship of 5,000 young people with an average age of 19 and wondering at the courage of service and the dedication they had and the maturity which they showed in their mission. My brother-in-law has since retired from the Navy and is, after being transferred to Jacksonville, and is now working for an aerospace company. He raised 2 young people, my nephew and my niece. They're now both Navy. My niece is here in San Diego. She's a freshman at the University of San Diego in Navy ROTC. My nephew graduated Navy ROTC and is now in active duty. He owns a plank off the Michael Murphy, had the first duty call and was serving in the South China Sea and is now back stateside. So ever since my grandparents immigrated to this country through Ellis Island and celebrated the fact that they had new opportunities, we've been instilled with the values that we need to protect our freedoms as part of what we must pay back to the nation. And we do it in many different ways. But the veterans are singularly dedicated and committed to giving up a normal life for their nation and sometimes losing that life. Now, as an astronaut, I've had the opportunity to orbit the Earth once every 90 minutes, pretty fast, Mach 25. I used to wear my Mach 25 patch into the officers' clubs and just watch them around the bar talk about it. Never ask about it. But in addition to doing work in space and looking out at space, it gives you an opportunity to look down at the Earth and see all of these countries that you cannot identify the borders. And you know there's conflict down there. You know there are people that don't wish you well. And what would we be like if we didn't have those that volunteered for the call of service to give us this sense of peace in our nation, to protect us from those people? So service has been ingrained into us. In one way or another, we feel an obligation to pay back to this nation for so much it has given us. I grew up on a homestead in Washington State. I was given the opportunity to go to high school, which my mother was not, growing up on a homestead in Montana. I was given the opportunity to go to college and graduate with an engineering degree and then be qualified to eventually be an astronaut and now a college professor. What a great nation. And thank you so much to the veterans who made it possible. Thank you to the veterans too, like Jackie Cochran. What a remarkable woman. Here she was, 3 years after the Wright brothers flew in 1903. She was born in 1906, and at the age of 26, obtained her pilot's license. I think it only took her about 3 weeks. And like we say, she was bit by the bug if you fly. And she took her flying lessons, and she wanted to go faster and higher than anyone else. And by 1938, she was determined to be the best female pilot in the United States. She won the Bendix race. She set new speed and altitude records. She was the first woman to fly a bomber across the Atlantic, and she won 5 Harmon trophies. At her death in 1980 here in California, no other pilot held more speed, distance, or altitude records in aviation history. But she also believed in service. Before the U.S. joined the World War II, she was part of Wings for Britain, an organization that ferried American-built aircraft to Britain. And in Britain, she worked for the British Air Transport Authority, recruited women pilots from the United States, and have finally attained the rank of a captain there. In 1940, seeing what was happening on the horizon in international conflicts, she proposed to Eleanor Roosevelt that the U.S. start a flying division of the Army Air Force. Make a long story short, with various people involved, including General Hap Arnold and Lieutenant Colonel Robert Olds and many other organizations, she eventually became director of the Women's Air Force Service Pilots, or the WASPs, who trained at, and this is full circle, Avenger Field in Sweetwater, Texas. In fact, some of those early pilots trained with Mrs. Hobby in Houston at the Hobby Airport. They flew and ferried B-17s, B-29s, B-24s, P-38s, Mustangs, well, in fact, the P-51, which is one of my favorites. They averaged, when they were selected, 1,400 hours, and we're all commercial pilots. There were only about 1,000 selected. They were deployed over 122 air bases, and over 2 years, they flew 12,260 deliveries. And Jackie Cochran organized and administered all of that. After the war, she joined the Air Force Reserves, and she was promoted to colonel in 1969. But she wasn't done yet. By the way, I think she was 47 when she did that. She then went on to receive 3 Distinguished Flying Crosses. She started flying jets and became the first woman to go supersonic. She was friends with Chuck Yeager. She worked as a consultant to the Northrop Corporation and set records with the T-38, the same airplane I flew into North Island in the back seat. And it still amazes me that she got that airplane up to 55,000 feet in horizontal flight and peaked at 56,000 feet. I don't think any of us flying the T-38 dared go above 45,000 feet, for those of you who've flown that airplane. That's pretty remarkable. And finally, later in her career, being friends with one of the members of the NASA Space Life Sciences Committee, William Randolph Lovelace, she helped to fund a special study to look at women and their physiological and psychological attributes to see if they would be qualified for future space flight. They're often known as the Mercury 13. They were all private pilots. None of them had actually been through test pilot school or were engineers, but they were all quite competent. And Dr. Lovelace determined that women, in fact, were suited for space flight. That's important because in 1972, when I became an engineer for Rockwell International up the road in Downey, California, and President Nixon signed the paperwork that funded the space shuttle, it was designed for women. And I knew that in 1972. And so I waited for the time that the announcement was made and the solicitation the first time in 1977, and didn't make that class, but I made the next class because I knew that we're ready to fly women in space. I knew that Jackie Cochran was part of laying that framework. So today, we honor all our veterans, and we honor and commemorate a special veteran from California here that did so much for all of us, Jackie Cochran. Thank you very much.
Dr. Dunbar, thank you again for taking time to be with us here today and for those remarks. An incredible story in your own right. We'll now unveil a plaque replica of Jacqueline Cochran's plaque that the audience may view after the ceremony. Her actual plaque is located down here to my left. It's on the small wall BB down here, which coincidentally happens to be the plaque where my father is honored as well. For those of you that don't know, you don't have to be a war hero. This monument honors countless heroes in the traditional sense, or the sense that you might think of. But what this is all about is honoring everyone who served honorably. My dad wasn't a hero. He was a seaman. He didn't see combat, but he served honorably. And when I asked if it would be appropriate for my father to have a plaque here, there was almost an astonished look over the folks that I talked to over their face. They said, well, of course, this monument belongs to everybody that served honorably. Keep that in mind. They don't have to be deceased either. You can honor somebody with a plaque while they're still alive. So if you would help me unveil this plaque down here today to two of Vivian Cadman Eddy's daughters, Lynn Eddy Zambrano and Liz Eddy. Helping me unveil the plaque down here now? Is that what we're going to do? At 19, Vivian was already licensed to fly airplanes, but didn't yet have a license to drive an automobile. 1943, the shortage of male pilots for World War II, for that effort, gave 22-year-old Vivian the shot of a lifetime. She was one of only 1,000 out of an applicant pool of 25,000 tapped to join the elite Women's Air Force Service Pilots, the WASP. Her job was to ferry aircraft from point of manufacture to locations where they were shipped overseas. Qualified pursuit pilot, Vivian flew 17 different aircraft, including the P-51 Mustang, which, by the way, was her favorite. 1977, after years of intense lobbying in Washington, the WASP were recognized as veterans and granted full benefits. Jacqueline and Vivian knew each other well, and it is with such great honor to have these ladies help us unveil the plaque to legendary pilot Jacqueline Cochran. All right, folks, in just a few moments here, one of my favorite things up here on Mount Soledad, I'm going to ask you to kind of turn around. You don't have to do it just yet. I'll give you a heads up. And look out towards the ocean. Because each year we're fortunate to have local pilots from great organizations and private owners that support us, including this year Air Group 1 of the Commemorative Air Force, the San Diego Flight Performance Team, and private owner Walter Bagdasarian. Now, the team is led today by Navy veteran pilot Jim Harvey of McGarvey Flying. He's flying the 1943 SNJ Texan T-6 from Air Group 1 in El Cajon. This is the same type of aircraft that Jacqueline Cochran would have flown in advanced training. Walter is in the slot position, flying his 1949 T-6G. Here they come. Todd Bowman is in his Yak 52. Curtis Stennis is in his Nanchang CJ-6A. Both this Yak and the CJ-6 have 6-cylinder, 360 horsepower radial engines. They retain many features in common with the Yaks that saw operation in World War II. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your flyover. Now, they're not done. If you didn't get a chance to get a shot of that, they're going to make a turn out over the ocean and return for one more pass. And at that time, they'll be performing the time-honored missing man formation. While you can still hear me, I'll just explain that for the folks that don't know. As they fly over, you'll note that the pilot pulls up and away from the formation, signifying the reluctant departure from Earth of another brave warrior and the return of his soul to God's gift of eternal peace in heaven. So just enjoy the view for a few moments. Enjoy the breeze up here on Mount Soledad. Reflect on our veterans and this special day as we honor them. And I'm going to just let you enjoy just a few minutes, just in silence, to reflect on that on your own. We thank these team members for participating in today's ceremony. I thank you for your respectful attention and for your participation today. I'm going to turn it back over to Lou Scanlon.
Thank you, Mark. It's great to have you back. And I think I'll join the crowd. The P-51 was one of my favorite airplanes, too. And actually, one of the ladies who assisted me in unveiling the plaque actually showed me a pair of wings that were owned by her mother and were pinned on her mother by Jackie Cochran. So if you get a chance, you probably want to talk to her and find out about that story. Ladies and gentlemen, as we end today's program, I want to thank you for joining us to honor our veterans. All gave some gave all, to ensure our safety and freedoms. I'd like to thank those who made today possible. Dr. Dunbar for honoring us today with your presence and remarks. Reverend Ride for traveling all the way from Los Angeles to join us and bless the event with your invitation. I know a lot of us in San Diego used to say that the people driving from Los Angeles oftentimes would panic because they got to San Diego, they couldn't see the air. But evidently Reverend Ride was okay with that. Thanks as well to our elected officials that took time from their busy schedules to be with us today. The Marine Band San Diego, you're always terrific and a welcome addition to our program. Sergeant Sanchez, what an amazing talent, our soloist. A special thanks to Jim Kendrick and the San Diego Air and Space Museum for their support. A thank you to the Old Town Trolley. They have donated their services at our memorial events every year. And of course, thank you to the trustees, staff, and volunteers of the association. We just couldn't do this without you. Now the sales pitch. Remember, we're solely supported through plaque sales, memberships, and donations. If you believe in our mission and would like to become a member, make a donation, or honor a veteran by purchasing a plaque, please contact a volunteer at the tables to your rear. If you are able, please stand, and we'll conclude today's ceremony with what many consider to be America's other national anthem. Join with the Marine Band, Sergeant Sanchez, and all of us as we sing God Bless America. For those of you that may need a little reminder, the words are on the back of your program. Thank you for being with us today. Old Town trolley drivers are standing by to provide transportation to the parking areas. This concludes today's program, but for your safety and the safety of our guests on the dais, please don't mount the steps of the memorial until our special guests have come down. Thank you very much.